There we go. I'm turned on and switched on by this amazing panel coming up next. We're going to be talking about some zero knowledge stuff, which is always funky and interesting and misunderstood. So looking forward to hearing a couple different ways in which data can be handled in unusual ways, which our participants will enlighten us on. I think the neatest things for me is when I started out in blockchain, a lot of the conversation was around public and private blockchains and whether public was even appropriate to industry use cases or sensitive use cases at all. And I think more and more I'm hearing from a lot of participants that you don't simply have to choose between those two things anymore. We're much more interoperable between public and private chains, and we're also able to do many more things with data, both encrypted and decrypted, than we used to be able to do. So we'll welcome our participants on stage. We've got a couple different approaches to this, and looking forward to hearing about them.
Okay, hello audience. Thanks for joining us today. So we have a panel that is called Zero-Party Data, the Trojan Horse for Cardano Adoption. So let's talk a little bit about zero-party data today. So we think zero-party data has a bit of a branding issue. It's a clunky term that Forrester came up as an offset to first-party and third-party data. And it's supposed to convey something more intimate and accurate about you as an individual in comparison to what can be observed on the internet. But we believe it's a bit of an incomplete definition. So today, during the panel, let's try to define this a little bit better. So we believe that zero-party data is what's in your head, what's in your heart. It's your sentiment, your preferences, it's your experiences. It's everything that is valuable about you as an individual. So we believe that once we find a way to harness zero-party data and give you the power to harness zero-party data, a lot will change on the internet for the better. So today we have a panel of experts from different angles who all work around zero-party data. We have Matthias from the Partisia blockchain, head of product. We have Rodolfo, who is the founder of Vida Finance. And next to me, we have Luke, co-founder of Profala. I'll give each of the three the stage for a minute or two to explain a little bit who they are and how they and their organization are tackling zero-party data. Maybe Matthias, I'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the invitation and happy to be here. So I think our approach to zero-party data is more from a technological perspective. We've been working with identity with SSI for a longer period of time and sort of build up a base around that. And now what we are focusing really on is when you want to activate that data, when you want to present it, when you want to get it verified, being very sensitive data or verifiable credentials, you want to do that with the right level of privacy. So sort of the SSI today revolves a lot around having wallets, having verifiable credentials, and then do some kind of presentations around that. And what we are trying to bring in is really the right level of privacy, where we can use some simple privacy features, but also a more advanced one. And we are super excited to work with, for example, Profila, which is building natively on Cardano, and then they have a need for an additional level of privacy, which they're trying to extend into some of the offerings we have.
Thank you, Matthias. Rodolfo?
Yeah, so like you said, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I am one of the founders of Vida Finance, which is a reinsurance platform on Cardano that is exactly exploiting the new reality that a blockchain as a establishment of truth, a grounding of the notion of truth, of what we can all agree upon is happening, and then taking that, using that to the advantage, the efficiency of moving the current state of how the system is supposed to be, and using that to make insurance work 10 times better than it's been working since history, right? If I'd like to add something on the zero-party data, and it connects again with Vida, is if blockchain is the establishment of truth, of like a grounding of what truth is, then you will also now get to map ownership. So on that truth, you say, okay, this is the owner and it's secured, and I have this control, or this group has this control, and you're able to now almost algorithmically guide these things together. So it's facts that we use to, well, I'm not going to go too far, but work with regulators, work with an ecosystem, and elevate the capacity of trust and insurance to be about helping each other. Ubuntu, right? The notion of a FIDA itself in um, Arabic, which was a nice coincidence, but no, that's us. That's me.
Thank you, thank you. Luke,
Thank you.
Profile's view.
You know, zero-party data is the ultimate expression of decentralization. You know, when each and every individual human being is empowered to create and manage and control the most, as Michiel said, the most accurate, authentic, and valuable information and insights about themselves. You know, that's incredible. The potential of zero-party data is so vast because the current paradigm is so poor. You know, we're living in the world of Ptolemy, and Copernicus is just over the horizon. You know, ask yourself, you know, does your search history capture the totality of your soul? Does your likes and follows define you as a human being? Because that's what they're using now. That's what they're working with. Data brokers, platforms, brands that are trying to sell you things, all the stalkers, that's what they're relying on now. But what happens when a much higher quality product comes in the market? You. At Profiler, we like to joke that we're like Breaking Bad. We're trying to explain to people, you create the good stuff and you control the supply. And once that happens, once people understand that, then zero-party data stops becoming a clunky term. It becomes one of the foundational blocks of a much better internet and a much better world.
Yep, thank you for that. So yeah, zero-party data, of course, it's a lot of personal information. As a privacy lawyer, I look at it from a legal angle, but Matthias is a chief product officer. He has a lot more technical insights about this. So zero-party data, biggest challenges are, of course, for sensitive information, for sensitive personal information, healthcare industry, of course, about your health, in the finance industry, even where we are working on in AdTech. So Partisia has projects and partnerships in working in this industry. How do you tackle security of zero-party data?
Yeah, so I think you know that there's a lot of things when we say personal data, right? That there's like everything from information you input yourself to maybe someone issue credentials to you, and some of this is more sensitive than others, and you can usually store that in for example, a wallet, right? So you have some place where you manage it yourself. That's the whole ethos of Web3 and SSI. And what I'm really concerned about is when we have it and we get it, whether we input it ourselves or it gets shared by someone else, when we actually activate that, what happens? Who do we expose it to, and how can they manage and how do they control it? So, for example, if you are in a finance use case, right, where you go to the bank and you have some information you want to expose to them to get a loan, you may use normal privacy features like selective disclosure or CK proofs, where you tell something about your information without revealing the entire thing, and they can verify it and get the insights they need instead of going out to do the hard pull themselves. So that's very good for some use cases. But for example, what Luke and we spoke on the other day is like when we go into the next era where you have very, very sensitive healthcare data, for example, let's say that something like your genome, right, that you can actually get that and handle in an identity wallet where you own it totally yourself, then you want to be much, much more careful about how you actually present that, because when you present personal data to someone, to a business, something in EdTech or healthcare, you lost it when it is presented. You don't have any control about how they actually manage that. So that's sort of where we're trying to come in with stronger privacy features. namely something called multi-party computation, which is a technique where you can actually encrypt the data and then allow someone to compute on it and derive the insights they want without revealing the input data. So that goes into that whole stack of privacy features where you want to activate your data, you want to present it to someone, but you always want to make sure that you have the right features to present what's needed. And when it comes to something very, very sensitive, you want to be able to actually encrypt the entire thing with something like multi-party computation, which we operationalized on a blockchain. So native applications on Cardano, they can build there, and when there's a requirement for confidential compute, they can use a messaging system to do that computation on our side and get the output back to Cardano native applications.
And the ability to revoke as well, to actually not just consent but also revoke permissions as required. I think that's something that everybody's accepted cookies, but does anyone know how to revoke a cookie in the modern world? I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the beautiful thing about blockchains and self-sovereign identity, right? And that you can manage it, can be written into smart contract with autonomous business logic around it.
And not just for individual data, like something as sensitive as your genome, right? Like the clone for yourself in the future, but also as a tool, instead of crypto being an antagonist to regulators, to governance, it's actually an invaluable tool to allow regulators to force corporations to coordinate with corporations in that they are not exposing their private data, right? Their sensitive, like, business secrets, but you use multi-party computation or zero knowledge proofs to prove or have the organization, the institution, conform to the regulation automatically. So if so much of the cost of being regulatory compliant is the construction of these documents, these full-on reports 6 months later, and then on the regulatory end, reading through the whole thing, if you're able to automate, right, to build in checkpoints, right, to build in signature points, validations, tracing in a private preserving way, now all of a sudden regulators are wanting to onboard and bring in regulations so corporations meet their expectations and reducing the cost of compliance for everyone.
Yeah, along the just-in-time compliance.
Yeah.
You can say. You can steal that if you want.
I think that's a really good example that this is as much about compliance than I actually want to protect my privacy in some cases. And it seems like businesses, they're also welcoming it because suddenly you don't need to think too much about GDPR, for example, because you actually have a technology that sort of protects you from handling that type of information.
Yeah.
And I'm always thinking about also, the area of AI and your sensitive data. For example, your genome, right? Perhaps you want to do something with that data, right? So maybe you want to throw it to a machine learning model which can predict something about your health and your future, so you can eat the right stuff or something to prevent that. But when you actually throw it at a machine learning model, you want to make sure that the data stays encrypted and private, and you get the results.
The insurance company doesn't use it against you to cancel your life insurance.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
I guess it just goes on all these kind of things you want to protect you from.
Yeah, for sure. And it ties the loop, right? Because the regulators are also there to protect their citizenship. So you're protecting your own data personally in the way you interact with organizations, but also the regulators are able to protect you by their ability to better enforce the laws that are meant to protect us all, right? To be better societies. One of the things I like about a crypto is the idea that it binds us to be better cooperators, to be better humans.
Yeah, because these things are captured in a smart contract. Here are the terms of how I've shared with your company. If you violate that, we have proof of what we agreed to.
Done.
And your compliance or lack thereof and along those checkpoints is the evidence required. So good behavior is incentivized every single day, every single second. Yeah.
Maybe, we often look at zero-party data for individuals' personal information, but talking to Rodolfo the past few days, he of course also gave the angle that it's between corporations as well. Are you actually tackling that in the insurance industry, and how do you think the insurance model is going to switch if zero-party data becomes a valuable part of it?
Right, I already hinted at that. Well, this is your private, like you can't use it to deny someone life insurance, right? But also, like as we were building out, as we were researching for FIDA, you'd be surprised of how much power is centralized in a particular large reinsurer. Like regulators have no other choice but to believe anything they say. The only practical way these laws have been able to have been formulated is please provide us a proof using your own ideas, your own models for solvency if in case a 1 in a 200 year event happens. So it's like that is counter to all possible incentive structures, right? Any reinsurer is just going to say, yeah, sure.
We got that covered.
We got that covered, of course, here. And you're like, well, but okay, and where are the funds? Oh, just Johnny from my bank. He's got it. And it happens. You look it up. It's not that publicized, but last year there was a multi-billion-dollar scandal where a startup reinsurer said that basically falsified bank statements, right? Banknotes with a Chinese, in a bank from somewhere in the world, and when the claims came, it was like, oh no, we're sorry. And a lot of smaller insurance companies defaulted. They went bankrupt because of fraud. So, yeah.
Maybe a question towards Luke. So Profile specifically decided not to be a digital identity provider, but digital identity is strongly intertwined and linked with zero-party data. Could you explain a little bit the link between the two?
Well, I was thinking about the keynote yesterday. Frederick talked about the digital twin, which is a phrase that we're definitely going to have to steal in our messaging. We will marvel at how stupid marketing is now, because it's based on the idea of searching and stalking. Either I have to go to someone's website and figure out how they see the world and try to locate what may be interesting for me, or they're stalking me by throwing ads in me because of observed behavior. We'll marvel at how inefficient and ineffective that is once Copernicus comes on stage for that. And there's two aspects of it, and the sexier one is digital ID. The less sexy one is zero-party data, but they both need to be used together. So digital ID is basically saying, okay, I'm Luke, I can certify I live in Switzerland, I can certify I have health insurance, I have a valid work visa for Switzerland. That's the things, essentially my bona fides. But it's not a digital twin yet because it doesn't say anything about me, it just has my credentials. And as Michiel said, our mentality is we don't want to get in the digital ID business because there's not going to be one winner. I have three. I have a Dutch one, I have a Swiss one, I have a US one, I've got a Telebrism one. There's not going to be one winner in digital IDs. We want to be able to let you bring any of your IDs into Profila and any of the certificates or credentials that come with them, and then be able to say, well, this brand wants me to prove that I am a Swiss resident, therefore it can quantify me in terms of total lifetime value as a customer. And me being able to give that either explicitly, saying exactly what kind of visa I have, or just in a zero knowledge, yes, I have one, it's validated, it's been approved, and so on and so forth. So that's just kind of the credentialism part of the equation. But the second part is, again, what's in my head and what's in my heart. And our model is based on, with Profila, is based on self-discovery quizzes around travel, around fashion, and food and wine, and all the things that you actually care about, the things you actually have sentiment and preferences about. That right now, there's no way to express them online without going to someone else and then having them sell it onwards and onwards. As opposed to the model of That's my vault, that's my asset, and I get to decide through smart contracts that Lego gets this parts of my profile, but not other parts. But I'm only going to share that for my value because I want them to make better. Because I think the old way is searching and stalking, and the new marketing will be about matchmaking. And that requires trust, which blockchain brings, which zero-party data brings, digital ID brings, that I can just say, here's who I am, here's what I'm interested in. I trust you as a brand. Don't tell me things that I don't want to hear. Just give me experiences, content, exclusivity, based on what you've learned about me through our smart contract, through that. And I would say it's not creepy because I told you. And I think you hear about like geo advertising. Well, if I was walking down the street in Lucerne and got a geo ad, the creep factor would be off the charts. It's like, hey, how do they know I'm here? I didn't consent to that. How do they know what I want? Most likely they don't. And so that's kind of an old way of thinking about it when it's like, no, marketing is matchmaking. It's actually making a market based on what they're offering and what they know about me. And in a trusted relationship, then I'm saying, yes, go ahead and tell me what you think is relevant for me. And also, I want to be able to turn the volume down if I think you're sending me too much. So I think digital ID is so important. We love hearing about the new the new possibilities. I've been watching a lot of the keynotes about digital ID, including today, and they're focusing on the credentialism without the other parts, which is the zero-party data. So I think together, that is my digital twin. It's not just the digital ID. So I think it's what I'm hearing is incomplete in the markets, and I hope that we're able to convince people that there's two sides of this, and together that is my digital twin, and that has incredible value.
Yeah, and even in insurance, it's like it changes the power dynamic, where I can choose to apply for a discount, for example, because I'm a non-smoker, but it's not data or knowledge the insurance company is entitled to.
Yeah.
Unless I'll allow them to have it, right?
Yeah. It's the same thing with genome. If I want to anonymously put my genome out there for potentially clinical trials or AI cancer drug research, those sort of things, that's my choice. And I should be able to get value for that because that is valuable. So that's the thing is now data is cheap because it's plentiful and largely inaccurate and unethically sourced. When it's yours, then it becomes valuable. And I worked in pharma for a long time. Getting a clinical trial patient is $20,000-$25,000 each because of all that you have to do to not only recruiting but compliance. Does that mean putting my genome on someplace I should get $1,000? That's a lot cheaper than the existing model because again it's based on consent. So I think that the fact that folks like Partisia are solving the most complex data protection and privacy will enable things that we can't imagine now. Because we don't have that trust. The trust will create new relationships, new scenarios we can't imagine before because we just didn't trust to not be stolen and resold again.
Yeah, and again, it's not only about me as a user preserving the privacy about what I present, it's also, at least what we are trying to do is to allow also, in this case, the companies, right, to come back with the right offer to you based on your input while it stays private. And so some of the things we've been trying to work around is like, for example, to take multiple inputs of zero-party data and then combine it into some kind of aggregations. So you can still present valuable statistics to brands so they're able to come back to you with the right offerings, right? Because it's also difficult all the time to sit and say, I want full privacy. I'm going to do some kind of presentation to you and I expect a super good result. So you need also to make that privacy layer which enable them to maybe train their models on coming back with the right offering for you, because otherwise I think you will just get it's sort of like trash in, trash out, right? You need to be able to provide the valuable insights with the right level of privacy to get your best recommendations.
Yeah, I think you can imagine kind of ongoing focus groups where, okay, my brand subscribes to a million people in Switzerland. I know their demographics, their age, their gender, whatever, but I can also see from the zero-party data, they're becoming more eco-conscious in their travel. for instance, a forward indicator that right now you couldn't do. You do a focus group, and the moment it's done, it's degrading over time. Instead of saying, no, we've got a data relationship with 1 million people. Let's see how they evolve. So market research will be changed by this as well. Again, but it all must have the trust that only blockchain can bring. That's the key is, zero-party data doesn't work without blockchain, because blockchain brings the decentralization, the security, the trust, and Cardano's mindset, their philosophy is even more tied in with their agreements. That's why we're trying to build on Cardano. It's a good match.
Yeah, for sure.
When we talk about zero-party data, it's a new thing, it's a new concept. When we pitch to VCs, when we talk to projects in an individual basis, especially a conference like here, for people it's almost a no-brainer that this is the future, and that the way it works now with first-party data and third-party data is going to change. But especially in the insurance industry, in the advertising industry, these are large industries, a lot of money, a lot of existing players who have their existing model of doing things. We're often averse of change. Who do you think will be the big losers that are against zero-party data, and how do you think they will act against it? I don't know who wants to take this question.
Take insurance. I think it's interested in your answer.
Well, there's always that fear, right? The people who have manufactured and already gotten the system to protect their way of working, their own interests. These people won't realize that switching over is also more efficient for them. So, at least in the short term, it's a huge shock, right? It's like, oh, but my business is like, how am I gonna work, right? I need this. This is how I'm making money, right? But at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're enabling a smoother alternative path, right? A more thoughtful, considerate mechanism. So of course there's going to be a problem if you're a data broker, right? And the insurance industry itself also relies a whole bunch on this metadata to generate its models, right? To generate and build out the risk profiles of how they're gonna do your, for example, your car insurance, right? I'll give you this device install this in your car, and all of a sudden I know exactly where you are every day, and that's not conductive, right? That's an invasion on your privacy, and I have to sacrifice my privacy. I now know someone looking at the screen, a monitor for this company, is also able to see like where I am, right? What if with this, for that use case, what if instead of my giving all this, like the details of my data, the insurance company actually only needs my speeding profile, right? They only need almost a binary yes/no answer to, do I love to be 20 over the speed limit? Is my acceleration profile on the stoplights, right? Is like woof, right? And that's all. Those two data points is enough to get a risk assessment. I do not need to share where I am Thursday afternoon, right?
Where were you?
I'm not saying.
What are you hiding?
Yeah, and it's scary at first, right? Because if I'm an insurance company, say I'm encrypting this, I no longer have access to this, I'm going to lose money. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case, right? It's a fluid transition, and we're here to basically help companies in the insurance industry also adapt and come and become more modern.
Yeah. I think in the B2C space, the losers will be the ones who are slowest, but it most likely won't be the brands, because the brands at some point are going to go, why am I paying a third party for bad, incomplete data about you when I can pay you for the best going forward? And because of that, be able to target based on what you love and get better conversion. in a better relationship. And also, when you have enough of my product, you can turn that volume down a little bit until you want to turn it back up again. So I think brands, just out of their own self-interest, are going to go, yeah, why do we have to go through a third party? Let's go right to the source.
And for regulated industries, it's a similar situation. You just had just-in-time compliance. So the moment you're subscribing to this, you recover agility, right? In a regulated industry, I have a background in software. It's always, oh, but regulation. Oh, but compliance is like, no, you can do agile methods, right? You can do just-in-time planning. You can do the steps needed for regulation. You read the specs. You do not need to build a 300-page document for every release. You just need proof of passing through, for example, your quality assurance gate. And these things can now be automated to the point that in a regulated industry, be it insurance, medical, or aviation, all of a sudden you can have just-in-time deployments because you build a system as a regulator where you're happy enough to allow even a staged release, right? For flight software, or for example, this happened with the Microsoft kernel security module earlier this year. I think it was CloudStrike. They made a deployment, right, that affected
Everything.
it was a global outage. And you go in the industry and you ask, well, what the hell? What happened? It's like, didn't you test this? And it was like, no, we didn't. It was a minor release. And it's like, wait, no. If you automate this thing, like all of a sudden there's a red flag and you can systematically have better security as well. Because they made a commit, they thought it was a small typing error, and they did not do the regular testing cycle that they would normally have done, and with just-in-time compliance, it would have not been allowed to be deployed to millions of computers around the world.
Yeah, no, so just to chip in on that thing about who's going to be the losers, I think at this point it's going to be the ones who doesn't adapt and really try to integrate this, both on the consumer side, but also certainly the business side. I think one example is the ID SSI, right? It's a bit, again, about the verifiable credentials, but that thing has been going on for so long time. And now at least what we are seeing is that enterprises, they're actually starting to say, hey, we need to be on board on this. We need to understand what is a wallet, how do we work with people who issue verifiable credentials and users, because users, they are increasingly getting that option of managing their own data, whether it's something as simple as a KYC claim as a verifiable credential, or zero-party data where you insert information yourself. They understand and know now this is going to come up. And when you put users in that position where they have that control, it's more on their terms rather than the business's term. So, but it also goes for the consumers, right? That they need to start to get comfortable with it. They need to start to figure out, how do I actually handle my data? What does it mean to have digital identity and zero-party data? Because it sort of comes at that there's some new risk involved in that, because people, they say, yes, give me my data, I want to control it and all that stuff, but then suddenly you will have it in your phone or something like that. So what do you do in terms of backup? Or I back it up in my cloud. Maybe that's not a good idea if you really want it to be self-sovereign.
Yeah.
Then I back it up on my USB, then my house burned down, right? So there's also it's almost like a paradigm shift where I'm really in control of my own assets and data. And that also ties back to these privacy features, right? So, okay, I do a selective disclosure. I present some information with zero knowledge proof. People need to understand they still presented something, and it's out of their control. So again, tying back to also the privacy features we spoke about, we are trying to put that last layer on where you take very, very sensitive information that needs to be protected with incredible layer of privacy and enable that feature for applications like Profiler.
Yeah, and well, identity theft is a real thing. It's like it is not the first or second time that I've had a second-hand or first-hand story of someone going to a bank to claim that their identity has been stolen, that someone's making purchases on their account, and the bank says, "No, no, that is not true. Your wallet has been verified by yourself, right? You call this time." It's like, "No, look, I am here, literally, physically in the bank." It's like, "Wait a minute, let me call, because there's a problem. This is not true. I have all the logs." "Hello, Peter Jackson? Yes, yes, it is me." Peter's right there. Like, "I'd like to authorize. Is it true that you want to authorize a transaction for $5,000 for?" "Yes, yes, yes, of course. Pass it through." And it's like, see, it's that ability that you were talking about to revoke and actually come back into that ownership is a real game changer. The systems that are now in place are not enough. They're actually failing us. It's a quiet secret.
But
There,
but
nobody.
for it to work, I think interesting to hear that a consumer needs to understand it. So there's education projects like FIDA and Profala have like a big job to try to get those users on board. But then at the same time, technology needs to be ready for it, needs to be user friendly as well. So maybe tying it also to Cardano, I think if projects like ours can get a lot of users to control their zero-party data in these large multi-billion-dollar industries, and we're using Cardano blockchain, Cardano technology, digital identity to like secure this zero-party data, it would be a huge Trojan horse for Cardano adoption. Question, maybe the follow-up question before we run out of time is Cardano there today? What can they maybe do to improve that from a technical point of view so that this technology is really, let's say, enterprise grade ready for when the adoption from the consumer side is coming?
I think it's just absorbing the fact that it needs to go to someone like my mother. And my mother, the first time she used a computer, she took the mouse and put it on the screen and moved it around. Well, if she doesn't need to know how Cardano works, she has to need to trust it enough, or whoever's putting that layer on top of Cardano enough, that she knows she's protected. I don't understand when I go to a website what's going on in the background. I just trust that it's HTTPS or whatever it is. So it's Cardano is a base technology that people have to create great UX for, and it really is a UX issue. It's understanding how you'll get mass adoption. But if Cardano is the contracting layer for data relationships, nobody cares that it is except for Cardano. But it's the UX on top of it. That's what we're trying to come up with. And I build it. I design it for my mother. If she can get it, then anybody can get it.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's also the extension of the user experience into the real world. It's totally new in that sense. Like you were saying okay, now I have to, this is a new asset I really need to protect, and I need to have it in some physical, real form that I can get back to if something happened to my cell phone, right? Or something happened to this. So, extending that user experience. So even that, you need to touch back into the real world and make that seamless, make that fluid, do that education bit. And it applies for corporations as well, right? It's a lot of work, and if there's any industry, if there's any group of like-minded souls ready for that endeavor, it's the ecosystem I think we're in.
Yeah, I think about that point, right? So one of the things that maybe it's like 1 or 2% of the world's population which has exposure to Web3 and crypto, right? Because they want it. It may be someone with a gaming background who's used to tech and all that stuff. So when we want to onboard the next 98% of the world's population to get exposure to all that, we need to get more convenient solutions to, for example, handle your wallets and your key pairs. And something I've seen on Cardano, and something we also work with, is, for example, you can use your social login, and then there'll be generated non-custodial keys and wallets behind that. So someone can just then click a button, right? Sign in with Google maybe, and the key, that whole complexity of blockchain and wallets will be abstracted on that, while you still have sort of a non-custodial secure solution, but it's very easy for someone who didn't have exposure before.
Yeah.
So I think that goes for everything around identity, personal information, zero-party data, that you need that abstraction away from blockchain before you can sort of get the next mass adoption.
Yeah.
Maybe we're getting to the end of our session. If one of the speakers still has a closing remark.
Sure, yeah. I think for me the most expansive dream I have for Profila is that we become a noun. That you don't talk about zero-party data, you talk about my Profila. And not only the sentiment that I capture, but also the first-party data I can fold in. So if I've got all the quizzes and self-discovery surveys I've done about my music preferences and how I like to consume music, plus my Spotify and Apple Music observed behavior, that now is the greatest source of my preferences in the world. And concert venues and artists and whoever can then subscribe to me and get the best and really target me much better than they do now. So I think that's the goal, is we become a noun, and I think when that happens, I think everybody wins, because everybody will be empowered by that.
Wonderful. I have no closing statements. I don't. FIDA itself is here to change the world in terms of insurance, but it's also about recovering this need to, for me at least, my passion is recovering the need to collaborate and cooperate over compete, and blockchain and zero-party data are the tools that bind us and allow us to truly trust and verify that things are going to happen in terms of what we've agreed is beneficial for not just me but everyone, because it's now that much more egalitarian.
Yeah, so collaborate over compete, I think that describes this construction very well, at least where, you guys are building natively on Cardano. We also are blockchain. You guys use their ecosystem and all the great features they have, and then you need this confidential compute capability which you use for us. So we submitted a Project Catalyst proposal to finalize our bridge and integration with Cardano, which will make it more seamless and automated for native Cardano applications to use our capability for confidential compute. So really excited about this.
Looking forward to that project together. I want to thank the speakers and also the audience for following our conversation, and wishing you still a nice second day at the Cardano Summit. Bye everyone.
Thank you so much.